Vikatan's website has been blocked by the central government for publishing a cartoon criticizing Prime Minister Modi on its digital magazine Vikatan Plus. The cartoon depicts Prime Minister Modi's silence on Indians being handcuffed and deported from US to India. Here we have Mr. D. Suresh Kumar, senior journalist and the deputy residential editor of The Hindu. We are going to discuss about the freedom of speech in India at present and the blocking of Vikatan's website. Hi sir.
Vanakkam.
Sir, did you took a look at the cartoon, sir?
Yes, I saw the cartoon.
Yeah.
The cartoon basically shows the Prime Minister in shackles seated next to the US President Donald Trump. And I can understand that this cartoon was published against the backdrop of Indians who had illegally entered the US being sent back to the country, deported to India in military, in aircrafts, in commercial aircraft, in aircraft, in chains. Right? So I think that Vikatan basically wanted to highlight that. And that is what seems to have incensed the BJP leaders belatedly. Why I say belatedly is because I understand that the cartoon was first published on the 10th of this month in Vikatan Plus, which is the digital offering of the Vikatan magazine. But only on the 15th of this month, the BJP leaders realized that this is offensive and then they lodged complaints. So therefore, I had seen the cartoon. Yes, I have no issues with the BJP filing a complaint. But my concern in this case is that the due process of law has not been followed.
Yes, sir. The Vikatan's website has been blocked without any prior notice or requesting any prior explanations. How do you see it, sir?
See, this is what there is something called principles of natural justice. So when any crime takes place or there is any offence or when somebody is accused of something, then you give the person an opportunity to be heard and only then the case is decided. But in this instance, as we can see, what happened is on the 15th, the BJP state president, Mr. Annamalai, he has tweeted that he has lodged two complaints, one with the Press Council of India and one with the Union Minister for INB, Mr. L. Murugan, who belongs to his political party. Both are identical complaints, right? And he says that the Vikatan has been functioning as a mouthpiece of the DMK and repeatedly publishing cartoons. So he had also attached past cartoons in this. Now the point is, when Mr. Annamalai decided to approach the Press Council of India, which is a forum that hears grievances of readers, why should he also simultaneously go to the Information Ministry? Right? So parallelly he has approached two forums. Of course, yes, the law allows him to take recourse through as many forums as possible. But then either he should have objected first to Vikatan Group, or if he has any objection, if he has taken it to the Press Council, he should wait for the due process. Now, after the complaint has been lodged, the due process would have been to issue notice to the editors of the Vikatan Group, give them an opportunity to explain themselves, and then take action if at all, right, required. Although I don't advocate for action against media and its freedom of speech and expression, in this case, that has not been followed, right. So, if I may continue, right, I would say that this case actually reminds me of a development that took place in Ananda Vikatan itself 38 years ago. 1987, sometime in March, the Ananda Vikatan had published a cartoon on its cover page. This cartoon was objected to by the MLAs. One, Mr. N.S.V. Chintan, had actually taken it up in the assembly, and the then speaker immediately pronounced Vikatan as guilty in this case. And he issued a directive to the Ananda Vikatan editor, Mr. Balasubramanian, to not only apologize to the House, but also carry a front page apology in the very next issue of the Vikatan magazine. What Mr. Balasubramanian did was, he did not apologize. Instead, he sent a copy of the article which was to be published in the April 5th issue of Ananda Vikatan at that point. And he also pointed out to the speaker that the issue has been prejudged. Now, when does a breach of privilege motion, when is it taken up? Ideally, a breach of privilege, when it occurs, the speaker, upon notice from a member, should refer it to a privileges committee. And then the privileges committee must give an opportunity to the other party to be heard. And after that, pass judgment. But immediately after Mr. Balasubramanian sent his explanation to the speaker, in which, as I mentioned, he did not apologize, the speaker announced that he will be sentenced to jail for 3 months. The same day, on April 4th of 1987, Mr. Balasubramanian was arrested and he was imprisoned at the Chennai Central Prison. right?
Yes.
2 days later, he was set free because at that point the chief minister had intervened, and then that's what the speaker said, right? But later, in this case, what happened is Mr. Balasubramanian, after being released, he moved the Madras High Court. He filed 2 petitions. One petition was challenging his conviction by the Speaker of the Assembly to declare it as null and void and unconstitutional. And the second petition was a writ of mandamus, seeking a direction to the Speaker and others to compensate him for violating his fundamental rights.
Yes.
This case was heard by a full bench of the Madras High Court, because that was, the single judge initially heard it and he referred it to a full bench. The full bench in 1994 delivered its verdict. 2 issues it decided. It agreed with the contention of Mr. Balasubramanian that the Speaker had prejudged the issue. He did not give any opportunity to him, to the editor, to explain his stand. So, Mr. Balasubramanian was very clear. He said, I was given just 2 alternatives. 1, to apologize. Number 2, to go to jail. Right? So, where is the principle of natural justice in this? So, the High Court said that therefore, it was very clear, it went through the House records, the Assembly records, and the High Court said that yes, the Speaker has prejudged the issue without referring it to the Privileges Committee. And this is what the records of the House say. Having decided that, the court did not go into whether that particular cartoon amounted to a breach of privilege or not. It left that issue aside. It then came to the issue of compensation that Mr. Balasubramanian had sought. And what the court did was, it awarded a token compensation of rupees 1,000 to Mr. Balasubramanian, because in this petition he did not mention any amount that is required as compensation. Right? So 1,000 rupees was the compensation awarded, which is a landmark judgment by Justice Raju, a bench headed by Justice Raju, the full court of the Madras High Court. In this case, in the current case that we are discussing right now, a similar situation applies now, because after Mr. Annamalai's complaint, there has been no official communication from the Information and Broadcasting Ministry. The Press Council has not issued any notice, but from what we understand, certain internet service providers were asked to block the Vikatan website, and since late Saturday evening, the website was inaccessible to thousands and thousands of readers who had subscribed to the magazine.
Yes.
Right? So that has been the case. So they are clearly prejudged and a punishment has been meted out, whereas only today as we speak, that is the February 17th, the Information Ministry has issued notice to the Vikatan group to explain its stand on this issue, on certain objectionable material that is found. Right? So they have put the cart before the horse. Right?
Yeah,
the other way.
sentencing first,
Yes.
and then hearing the next.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the issue you mentioned about Mr. Balasubramanian's cartoon, full bench hearing the case itself shows the seriousness of the issue. So at present, what is the situation of freedom of speech in India, especially for medias and print medias?
See, I would say that the media's freedom has been under threat periodically. Right? We have seen it in different cases, both in recent times as well as earlier also. So the problem is that politicians, they do not tolerate any sort of criticism. Now in this case also, if you look at it, what is the remedy? If a particular cartoon was offensive, even if you have to legally remedy that, ideally they should ask that that particular cartoon be removed or seek an apology or something like that. But by getting the entire website blocked, right, you have gone to the other extreme. Right? You have gone to the other extreme by making it inaccessible to the readers. So any punishment also, as per law, right, should be proportionate to an offence, if at all an offence has been committed. It cannot be disproportionate. So in this case, a disproportionate measure has been illegally taken just because they received a complaint from the state president of the BJP. Right? So this underlines the threat, because a cartoon, if you notice, is just a humor. Right? You have to look at it like humor. Even if it's offensive or if you find it offensive, there's a way to tackle that. There are ways to tackle it. I will give you the example of the country's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. Right? He would be lampooned in cartoons by the eminent cartoonist Shankar, who was the editor of the Shankar's Weekly.
Okay.
And what was Mr. Nehru's commandment to Shankar? His simple dictate to Shankar was, don't spare me, Shankar. Now that is how we need to respond, right? That shows a level of maturity in dealing with it, right? So if you don't have that maturity, fine, but follow the due process of law, right? Unless that is done, then you are actually shooting the messenger. If you don't want any sort of criticism, if you want only to be praised, then just a government agency is enough for you. You don't actually require a fourth estate, right? We have a democratic setup in this country where the media is the fourth pillar, right? So the fourth pillar must be given its freedom. If that is not done, that is going to be at the peril of democracy.
Here raises another question, sir. So Vikatan is a print media. It has its digital presence, it has its website. Similarly, many media organizations work only on digital platforms. They have only digital websites. Now Vikatan's website has been blocked. Are the digital medias are more vulnerable to this oppression?
I would say that to some extent, yes, I will agree with you, because it's difficult to black out a print publication or a television media overnight, right? They can only be intimidated through other ways.
There are more legally
Yes.
defendable
thing. Then you have to also, they established organizations, so it's not easy to suddenly pull out all the magazines from the market, right? So there you need to follow a certain procedure. It's not easy. When it comes to digital media, the biggest problem is, especially for YouTube channels, the biggest problem is the control is with the government. So if the government directs a particular social media platform to pull down a video, they immediately comply, right, without giving an opportunity to the other side. So therefore, it becomes easy to intimidate the digital media. And we have seen that in many cases where overnight, websites have been blocked or overnight YouTube channels have been blocked. And when they do that, they're actually snatching away the labor of the journalist. Imagine the hours of hard work, hours and days and years of hard work that a journalist on a platform like YouTube would have taken to create content over the years, right? In one fine morning, because a particular video was objectionable to the authorities, they just removed. And that I would say that it's not just the central government, even the state government that way is getting increasingly intolerant, insensitive to content where there is criticism. And certainly those on the digital platform face greater pressure compared to those from the mainstream media such as print or television media.
The only option left for medias facing this kind of oppression is the legal agencies. Do you believe that legal agencies are giving the prompt response for this kind of oppression from the states?
See, I would not say that you will get immediate remedy in a legal system like what we see in India, right? Like when I mentioned about Mr. Balasubramanian's case in Anand Vikatan, he filed the petition soon after his release. It was decided only in 1994. So it does take 5-6 years for somebody to get basic justice. But then there's no other remedy left, right? Of course, there'll be collective pressure from within the media, like organizations like the Press Club or the Editors Guild. They will take up issues. They will try to put pressure on the government. Sometimes better sense prevails over those in power. They react to that, and then even like Balasubramanian's case, MGR realized that you can't keep him in jail for 3 months, although the speaker sentenced him to 3 months in jail, right? And then later he was released in 2 days, right? So sometimes better sense prevails. But there are cases of journalists languishing for months and years in jail also, especially the freelancers, especially journalists working for smaller publications, right? Where you don't have any other option other than to patiently wait for a legal remedy. Even there, I don't think justice is always delivered, right? Sometimes you may not get it in the lower court, you may have to approach the higher court or the Supreme Court to get justice. But that is where the fight becomes lonelier rather than getting support from, because the support comes initially, but later on it's left to the individual journalist to fight, as we see in many cases. That's very unfortunate.
So this way of oppression is one kind, blocking the website or a direct attack on the media houses, one kind. Another way of targeting is indirectly attacking the business of the media houses, particularly which do not have any political affiliations. So, being a deputy resident editor of The Hindu, did you face this kind of oppressions from the state regarding the business angle?
See, there will be pressures from different governments during different points of time, right? The pressure may come in different, it may come in different forms, right? Not necessarily by squeezing your, advertisement revenue alone, right? Because many newspaper organizations, many broadcast media organizations also depend on government advertisements, right? So that may be completely cut off, if they want to put pressure on some organization, right? So that is one kind of thing. The other thing is where you write against politicians, then you have a breach of privilege in the assembly, right, or in the parliament if they want to take it up. So those are other kind. Then of course there are also cases where there is a contempt of court. When you write something on the judiciary, right, you face a contempt of court. So you get attacks in different forms at different period of time, right? We do encounter this, but then the trust that the readers have in a particular organization, say like the Hindu, it's a trust that's been built over a century, more than a century, right? So that trust factor helps you to march on, right? Then of course there are other ways of pressuring, right? Especially off late, if you notice, right? I'm not necessarily referring to the Hindu, but I'm more so if you look at the digital platform, there's an organized troll army for every political party, be it the ruling party or the opposition party, right? So that is where it gets very ugly, right? Because when an organization faces an onslaught, the organization will be able to handle things better because they have a legal setup, they have maturity, they will be able to handle it better, right? By virtue of their existence in the field for decades. But whereas individual journalists might feel intimidated sometimes psychologically, emotionally, when they are targeted by an online organized troll army, right? So if you look at it, when you yourself might have encountered this, when you post a YouTube interview or a video, you look at the comments. Some of them are mature comments, but then most of them, they immediately attack you, they paint you with a particular political party's color, right? Or they make very crass comments, and then it becomes very difficult to handle that. It's all the more difficult for women journalists, right? So this is where it gets worse, and there is nothing to regulate this, right? Overall, the focus of the government, whether the state government or the central government, has been on regulating the media, right? But not on regulating the troll army, right? Not on regulating the abusive messages, not on the misuse of the platform, hiding behind the cover of digital identity, right? So they get more support than the media. So that is where it becomes very ugly.
So one final question. So what is the role of people in understanding the situation of media here?
See, I think the people will have to decide whether they want an independent media or not. Most often not, people immediately say that, okay, this paper, they take a particular political line. I think that sort of a mentality has to, be countered, and they need to reform also, because right now I find that people are willing to take at face value what is said by certain YouTubers who have no background in journalism, right? So they have no responsibility, no accountability, therefore they are able to blabber anything and get on with it. But the public unfortunately latches on to it, and they think that is the truth, and they question you, why are you not carrying similar news? Now, like I mentioned, a proper organization will have to follow certain guidelines, certain ethics, right? So therefore you are more responsible. So I think people should patronize legitimate media. People must extend support to organizations that have proven themselves as unbiased and as neutral organizations. They must patronize them. The reading habit, if you notice, it's coming down, right? People, especially that is why the print media faces a big issue in terms of sustaining circulation. I think therefore people, the responsibility is also with the people to ensure that they patronize media organizations that take care of their own fundamental rights better, right? Because the media is the major guardian for the citizens. So they should realize and they should patronize these organizations, right? And the reading habit has to increase, and they must give more credibility to the traditional media than some random YouTubers, right? So that is when the situation will change.
Wonderful speaking to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice speaking to you.
Thank you.